Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're taking you straight into Macondo,
Ooh, Macondo.
the fictional town at the heart of Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude.
It's a masterpiece.
Oh, it really is. And we've got excerpts from the novel itself.
Awesome.
I'm so excited to unpack this
Me too, yeah.
multi-generational saga
Yeah.
of the Buendia family.
The Buendias.
Think love,
Yeah.
war, obsession,
Oh, yeah.
even a plague of insomnia. We're in for a wild ride.
It really is. It's a world that blends history and myth and dreams in a way that truly makes you question what's real and what's magical.
Absolutely. And it all starts with the founding of Macondo itself. Jose Arcadio Buendia, the patriarch of the family, leads a group across mountains in search of the sea and eventually establishes this isolated town.
Right.
What struck me about him was this boundless energy,
Yeah.
this thirst for knowledge and progress.
Yeah.
He even fills his house with birds, creating this constant symphony of sounds.
That's a great point. It's not just a random quirk. The birds actually symbolize something much deeper. They represent Jose Arcadio Buendia's desire to control and understand the world, but also this chaos and this beauty that he can never fully grasp. There's this constant tension between order and disorder, even from the very beginning of the novel.
And there's this underlying darkness to him too, right? He's haunted by a past duel,
Right.
and that guilt follows him to Macondo. It almost feels like the town itself is born under a shadow.
Exactly. His belief that a person does not belong to a place until there is someone dead under the ground sets a rather ominous tone, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It foreshadows this weight of conscience that will burden future generations
Yeah.
of the Buendia family.
It's interesting how his wife, Ursula, provides this stark contrast.
Yeah.
She's grounded, practical, the anchor of the family in a way.
Right.
It's almost as if their personalities represent these two opposing forces that are always at play in Macondo, the dreamers and the realists.
That's a fascinating observation. And that duality is reflected in their children, too.
Yeah.
You have Jose Arcadio, the elder son, who's strong and impulsive, but
Yeah.
lacks his father's visionary spirit. And then there's Aureliano, silent, withdrawn, almost like he can see the future.
Oh, you mean like that scene where young Aureliano predicts the boiling soup spilling?
Exactly.
That always felt so symbolic to me, like it foreshadows the tragic events that will shape his life.
It certainly does. It hints at his connection to fate, but also this idea that even in this magical world, actions have consequences. And then we have the arrival of Rebecca, an orphan, who brings with her a plague of insomnia. Now, this isn't just some random plot twist.
Hold on, the insomnia plague, that's where I need some clarification.
Yeah. This plague, it impacts the entire town, causing not only sleeplessness,
Oh, wow.
but memory loss, and it blurs the lines between reality and dreams.
Huh.
People forget even basic things like how to eat or the names of objects.
Wow.
Imagine waking up one day and not recognizing your own home or family.
Wow, that's terrifying. It's like losing a part of yourself. But what does it all mean? What's Marquez trying to say with this plague?
He's highlighting the dangers of forgetting the past, of losing touch with reality. Think about it without memory. We lose our sense of identity, our connection to history. And in a town like Macondo, where history repeats itself in such a cyclical way, memory becomes even more crucial.
So the insomnia plague is almost like a warning, a foreshadowing of the larger themes of forgetting and repeating the mistakes of the past that will play out throughout the novel.
Precisely. And as the town grows from a village to a bustling center attracting new people and commerce, this tension between memory and progress becomes even more pronounced.
Which brings us to the gypsies, right?
Yes.
They arrive in Macondo with all their mystical knowledge and strange inventions, shaking things up. It's like they represent the allure of the unknown, the clash between tradition and the modern world.
And their leader, Melquiades,
Yeah.
becomes this key figure. He introduces Jose Arcadio Buendia to new scientific discoveries, but also exposes him to the mysteries of alchemy and the supernatural.
Right.
It's like he embodies the duality of knowledge itself, the potential for both enlightenment and destruction.
There are so many layers to this. It's like we're peeling back an onion, revealing new depths with every conversation.
And we haven't even touched upon the love affairs, the feuds, and the intricate web of relationships that start to form within the Buendia family.
Right. And there's that simmering tension between Jose Arcadio and his illegitimate son Arcadio, conceived during his affair with Pilar Ternera. Then there's Aureliano's fascination with the young gypsy girl,
Right.
which hints at his own complicated love life to come.
It's as if the novel is setting the stage for a series of events that will echo through generations, these patterns of love, betrayal, and solitude that seem to haunt the Buendia family. but we'll delve into those a bit later.
Before we move on, can we talk a little more about Melquiades and his
Yeah.
parchment? What's the significance of that? It's mentioned a lot in these excerpts.
That's where the real mystery of the novel lies. Melquiades leaves behind these cryptic writings a prophecy of sorts that foretells the entire history of the Buendia family and the eventual fate of Macondo.
Wait, so he predicts everything that's going to happen.
Not just predicts, but writes it down. It's written in a language that no one can understand at first, and it takes generations for someone in the family to finally decipher it.
That's mind-blowing. So even from the start, their destiny is laid out, but they're completely unaware of it. It's like a ticking time bomb just waiting to explode.
Exactly. And that knowledge, once revealed, will have a profound impact on the final generations of the Buendia family. But let's save that part of the story for later.
Okay, let's move on to the next chapter of this epic saga, the outbreak of civil war.
Here's where we see Aureliano, that quiet, introspective young man, transform into Colonel Aureliano Buendia, a legendary figure leading the rebel forces. But as we'll see, his journey to becoming a war hero is a complicated and ultimately tragic one.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Indeed. The war initially begins with a sense of purpose, a fight for freedom and justice. But as it drags on, the lines become blurred. We see the cyclical nature of violence, the way power can corrupt even those with noble intentions. And ultimately, it raises the question, can any war truly be won, or are we all just playing our part in an endless cycle of bloodshed?
Wow, that's a heavy thought. So the war isn't just about battles and politics. It's a reflection of the larger human struggle with power, ambition, and the futility of trying to control fate.
Precisely. And it's through the lens of war that we truly see the complexities of Colonel Aureliano Buendia's character unfold. But we'll dive deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive. So as the war rages on, we witness Colonel Aureliano Buendia's transformation, from that quiet, introspective young man into this hardened, almost mythical figure.
He becomes known for his strategic brilliance, but also for his growing detachment and coldness. It's like the war has stripped him of his humanity, leaving behind just a shell of than he once was.
Yeah. One of the most poignant scenes, that highlight this transformation is this anecdote about Colonel Geraldo Marquez reporting rain in Macondo. It kind of underscores the absurdity of war, how these grand battles and these political ideologies can feel so disconnected from the everyday realities of life back home. Imagine, fighting for a cause for years while life just simply goes on elsewhere, oblivious to the sacrifices you're making.
It makes you question the point of it all, doesn't it? What are they even fighting for anymore? It's like they're trapped in this cycle of violence that they can't escape.
And that's precisely what Colonel Aureliano Buendia eventually realizes. He becomes disillusioned, weary of the endless bloodshed. He understands the cyclical nature of war, how it breeds more violence, more suffering. And his eventual surrender isn't just a defeat, it's a recognition of this futility.
It's a powerful moment, but also a tragic one. He started with such noble intentions, but in the end he's left broken and defeated. Does this sense of disillusionment carry over into the next generation of the Buendia family?
Absolutely. The shadow of the war and Colonel Aureliano Buendia's legacy loom large over the family. And as Macondo enters this new era of prosperity with the arrival of the Banana Company, we see how this fleeting wealth only exacerbates the existing tensions and ultimately sets the stage for the town's downfall.
It's like a roller coaster ride. From a small, isolated village to this bustling town, then war, and now this sudden influx of foreign influence and money. How does this impact the family in Macondo?
Imagine this wave of change washing over everything familiar. The Banana Company brings jobs, infrastructure, modern conveniences,
Right.
but it also introduces this new kind of corruption exploitation and this disregard for the traditions and the values that once defined Macondo.
It sounds like the town is losing its soul in exchange for this so-called progress.
That's a great way to put it. It's this classic tale of capitalism clashing with traditional society. The people of Macondo are seduced by the promise of a better life, but it comes at a heavy price.
And the massacre of the banana workers is a chilling reminder of this price. The way Marquez describes the event, the train loaded with corpses, the subsequent denial and cover-up, it creates this chilling atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. It's like a ghost story woven into the fabric of reality.
Exactly. It's a brutal reminder of the power dynamics at play. The Banana Company represents this force that operates outside the bounds of morality, willing to exploit and silence those who stand in their way. And this event, buried and forgotten, casts this long shadow over the future of Macondo.
It's heartbreaking to see the town and the family spiraling towards destruction. As we move into the later generations, we see these themes of solitude, cyclical history, and this struggle against fate becoming even more prominent.
The later generations are almost like prisoners of their ancestors' mistakes. They're haunted by the past, unable to escape the patterns that have led to so much suffering. For example, Amaranta Ursula, a descendant of both Jose Arcawenio Bacdia and Colonel Aureliano Buendia, returns to Macondo with this burning desire to revive its former glory.
I remember being struck by her character. She's strong, independent, and full of life, but she's also carrying the weight of generations on your shoulders.
And despite her best efforts, her attempts to revitalize Macondo are ultimately futile. It's as if the town itself is cursed, destined to crumble into dust.
Her passionate and ultimately destructive love affair with her nephew Aureliano feels like the final nail in the coffin. And the birth of their child with a pig's tail, it's such a disturbing image, but also so symbolic.
It's this powerful symbol of the consequences of their forbidden love, but also of the decaying moral fabric of Macondo itself. It represents the end of a lineage, the final unraveling of the Buendia family.
And what about Gaston, her husband? He seems so different from the other Buendia men, more carefree and optimistic.
Gaston is an outsider, a breath of fresh air in this family, consumed by its own history. His passion for entomology, his childlike wonder at the world, contrasts sharply with the brooding introspection of the Buendias. He represents this potential for breaking free from the cycle, but even he can't escape the tragic fate that engulfs Macondo.
It seems like no matter how hard they try, the characters are ultimately bound to repeat the mistakes of their ancestors. Is there no hope for them?
Well, that's the question the novel leaves us with. Is it possible to break free from the chains of the past? Or are we all destined to follow the paths laid out for us by those who came before?
These are some pretty heavy questions to be grappling with. It's almost too much to process.
Yeah.
Can we lighten things up a bit before we wrap up?
Of course. While the novel explores these dark themes, it's also filled with moments of beauty, humor, and even absurdity. Remember the beauty pageants, the flying carpets, the endless rain? Marquez masterfully weaves these fantastical elements into the narrative, creating this world that's both magical and tragic, enchanting and heartbreaking.
It's this blend of realism and fantasy that makes 100 Years of Solitude so captivating. It's like a dream you can't quite wake up from.
Oh.
But we're running out of time, and I want to make sure we leave our listener with something to ponder.
Let's shift gears and talk about what all of this means for you, the listener. We've delved into the history, the characters, the symbolism, but what resonated with you the most?
For me, it's the characters. They truly bring this story to life.
Yeah.
Each one is so vividly drawn,
Right.
with their own unique quirks and desires and flaws. I found myself getting swept up in their lives even when they were making, questionable choices.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, it's the masterful way that Marquez blends those historical events with those fantastical elements. He creates this really unique reading experience
Yeah.
that challenges your perception of reality. You're never quite sure what to expect next, but you're always along for the ride.
I totally agree. And for me, it's that cyclical nature of the story that really
Yeah.
stayed with me. The way history repeats itself. The patterns of behavior that seem to be passed down through generations. It makes you think about the forces that shape our own lives.
That cyclical structure is one of the novel's most fascinating aspects. It emphasizes how we're often bound by the actions of those who came before us. But it also suggests that we have the power to break free from those cycles, even if it's a difficult and often painful process. Think about it. How are our own lives shaped by family history, by societal patterns, or even global events? Are we just playing out predetermined roles, or can we make choices that lead to different outcomes?
Those are some pretty profound questions, and that's what makes this deep dive so rewarding.
Yeah.
We're not just reading a story, we're engaging with ideas that are relevant to our own lives and our understanding of the world.
Exactly. And while the novel can feel heavy at times, it's also infused with these moments of humor and even absurdity, like the priest who levitates when he drinks hot chocolate or Rebecca's peculiar habit of eating dirt. These elements add this layer of lightness and wonder to the story,
Right.
reminding us that even amidst tragedy, there's always room for the unexpected.
It's that blend of darkness and light, realism and magic that makes 100 Years of Solitude a true masterpiece. It's a story that stays with you long after you finish the last page.
I wholeheartedly agree. And that's the beauty of literature. It has the power to transport us to other worlds, introduce us to characters we'll never forget, and challenge us to think deeply about life's big questions.
Before we wrap up, what's one final thought-provoking question our listener can take away from our deep dive?
How about this? Imagine yourself suddenly dropped into Macondo. How would you navigate its wonders and its tragedies? Would you get swept up in the Buendia family saga, or would you try to forge your own path?
That's a great question to leave our listener with. It challenges us to think about our own relationship to fate family, and the choices we make. I hope this deep dive has inspired you to explore 100 Years of Solitude for yourself, to uncover the magic and the wonder that awaits within its pages.
Happy reading.